Hi everyone, my name is Justine Phelps and I'm an energy healer with the Happy Lyon Center. And I would like to introduce you today to a client of mine, Ryan, who came to me with an issue with his dog. So Ryan, thanks for joining me here today.
Justine, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
And thank you for agreeing to do this also.
Of course.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your dog?
So Molly is about an 8-year-old silver lab. And as most labs are, they're kind of puppies till they die. She's very energetic, very playful, and gets along with most everybody and every dog that she meets. She's the fun dog at the dog park.
So very friendly, very loving.
Absolutely.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about what happened with Molly recently. Why did you approach me for help with her?
Yes, and I am very grateful that I did approach you and that you were able to help me. So I was on a scuba diving trip up in Canada. I went to Vancouver Island and went and saw some friends that we'd known for a long time and got clearance like to bring Molly up with me. And so there's multiple families that live on the property we're staying. And the family that I was staying with didn't have any pets, but the other family did. They had two Great Danes. One was a puppy, one was a bit older. And when you introduce the dogs, you have to kind of do this correctly, right? Like one at a time. So we introduced the puppy and Molly, and everything was fine. And then the older dog came in, and that's when things weren't fine. And it went from fine to not fine really quickly. Um, as they do, dogs establish dominance, they tussle a little bit. And so it's hard to know if like this is just like that little tussle that they've got to do, or if this is really a thing. And so we separated them. The next day we tried again. It was really a thing. And so these were Great Danes, and Molly's on the small side of the Labradors. And so you have two giant Great Danes against one little Labrador. And so we tried our best to keep them as separated as we could throughout the week. Um, that's easier said than done on a farm where there's no fences. It's just like everybody's running around and like we hope that those dogs stay on that side of the property. I mean, it's 10 acres and then we stay on our side. But sometimes they found their way and there were intermittent dog fights through the week, but we always were able to break it up really quickly. And so nobody was like physically hurt. Um, and so I didn't really think much of it. I mean, she seemed fine, and we had a very, very long trip back because we drove from Montana up to Vancouver Island. And Molly's always done great in the car. Like, and then we're I don't know an hour into a 13-hour journey, and she threw up in the back seat. Thankfully, you've got the covers down and everything's good. The covers are only good for so many throw ups, though. Let me tell you. Okay.
I bet.
At 4, we were like, "Oh my goodness, we have a problem. What are we going to do?" Because this is like I have to get out. And of course, dad's the one that's like scraping it off the back seats and stuff.
Oh, gosh.
And I'll admit, I was desperate. Like, I didn't know what else to do. And I'm like, you know something? I was at a rest stop in between cleaning up the back seat. And I was like, I messaged you and I was like, hey, I don't know if this is something that you can help with. Here's a picture of Molly. I didn't even know if you needed that. Is that something that you needed in order to do any healing?
Well, I do like to see the animal that I'm working on. So, yeah, the pictures are always very helpful. I don't absolutely need it, but it's a way for me to bond
Okay.
with an animal. So, yeah.
I figured it might be helpful. So I sent it over and you were like, hey, I'd love to help. And I was super duper grateful for that. Um, and so that's kind of what happened and how I kind of came to you
Oh, okay. Very good. Yes. And I'm really grateful that you came because I think we were really able to help Molly.
for sure.
So when I started doing the clearing on her, it was not much came out. I think it was still a little bit of a shock to her system. And we needed to do it gently, was my feeling. So I just jumped in and we cleared. I don't even recall now. I think it was some shock she had gone through. Um, I I don't even remember what all the emotions were. There was a few different things. And then she seemed fine after. What happened right after that? I think that was the first session.
Right, that was the first session, and so she was doing great after that. And by great, I mean she wasn't throwing up in the back seat.
Mm.
She was still very low energy. She just laid there. We tried to minimize her stops, to when like I just felt like she would need to go out, go to the bathroom. She was still like using the bathroom when we stopped, so I was encouraged by that. Um, and that kind of got us home, which, and I don't know, there was part of me that's like, we're home, everything's good. I'll give her some food and like we'll be back to normal. But that actually wasn't the case.
Yeah, it can take a little bit of time to get dogs back, an animal's body to back balanced after clearing a bunch of emotions. And I think that was good though. That gave her a chance. I gave her body a chance to adapt to losing some of that heavy stuff. And then I believe that you said some symptoms remained, right?
Right.
Once you were home.
So she didn't eat. And um, Molly is a very vigorous eater. So much so, I have to have one of those little bowls with the spirals in to slow her down. Otherwise, bad things happen. And so, same bowl, same dog food. It sat there for a day. And I was like, okay, they'll eat when they get hungry. And as dad, you're always trying to like gauge that. Like, is this a thing or is it not a thing? Like, I don't know. And then when she threw up a little bit more in the house, that's when I'm like, okay, this is still, and there was no food in there. It was just all liquid. I'm like, this is still a thing. And that's when I got back in touch with
Okay. Yeah, and as it turned out, there was more to clear, and that's really common. I think when something big happens, um, it can take a couple of sessions, two, three, whatever, to get all of that, all those heavy emotions and all the stress of that out of the body. And the animal, you'll always know that there's more going on. As parents of an animal, you're very sensitized to them, so you see these things like you didn't see. She saw she wasn't eating. So
you.
so it was great that you came back, and then a whole bunch more stuff came out. There's a lot more stuff came out the second session than the first session. And I think it was just there was this initial shock in the system that needed to be released, and once all the rest of it got released, then I think she bounced back pretty quick after that, right?
She does. So much so we actually played ball yesterday, with this trip just having happened recently. So she's much, much better, and back to her playful self and eating as she used to. So I'm taking these all as very good signs.
That's wonderful. And as usual, there was some things that came out just that was since that. We focused on those dog attacks and
Right.
the shock to her from those. But then a couple things came out also that she picked up from you, which
Mm-hmm.
was interesting. You may recall that there was some things like you had gotten confused and worried, and she absorbed those emotions from you into her body. So we had to clear that.
Right.
So
And
yeah.
that was definitely a learning experience for me throughout this, was realizing what a sink Molly is for me in my life of energy and emotion. Like, I had no idea she picked up on these things until this session, which was very enlightening for me.
Right. So all dogs do. People don't realize, they're just, you know, they don't have the protective mechanisms that we put up to protect ourselves. They're raw and out there and open because they just want love. That's their natural state, and it's our natural state, but we tend to forget that. But the animals operate in that space of just love, if allowed, if raised in a good environment. And so it doesn't take much when they're out of whack for for things to show up for them, but also they absorb everything that's going on with us just because they're so open to us. Their energy is so connected to our energy that things just flow. Majority of the animal cases, I would say, um, most of what comes out is stuff they've picked up from their owners or from other humans.
That's
It's
interesting.
yeah, it's a majority. of stuff. So usually for their own issue, it doesn't take much to clear that, but then it's all the other stuff that came along with it.
Right. You have to, you have to treat that underlying thing with the owner as well so they don't pick it up again.
Exactly, and that's a good thing that these things come out, because it's important for the owners to see,
Right.
what that they're going through something, and maybe they would like to work on clearing something of theirs. And I'm not going to go clear an owner's issues when I'm working with the pet, but
Right.
they need a they need an approach.
Right.
It's got to be a permission given for that. So but it certainly makes people very aware of what they're going through and how much their pet is being affected by it.
And this is something that you can help the owners with, correct? Just not like at the same
Absolutely.
time. Okay.
Absolutely. I just hope that they see that great success has happened with their pet, and they're ready for that same success in their own lives.
I'm all like, maybe after this podcast, we should be talking again.
And you know how to reach me.
There you go. Right. I have you in speed dial these days.
Well, I'm so glad to hear Molly's doing well, and
Yeah,
maybe you could share a little clip of her. I was thinking about maybe getting a little video clip.
for sure. I will send you one after the podcast, and I will show you how happy and she is these days.